at it. Morning Combat fired up, of course, for the launch of Bellator MMA's exclusive move to Showtime. And could we have picked a better name to get us all kinds of excited for April 2nd? Big John McCarthy, one of the most influential voices and faces in the history of this sport, and a color commentator in his own right with Bellator. Big John, always a pleasure weighing in here from the Weighing In Podcast studios. I love this.
That's the only studio I have, and I'm not pulling things off of the wall, but thank you for the introduction. And there's a lot of people you could have gotten who are a whole lot better than me.
Oh, come on. Yeah, I love the podcast, by the way, that you do with Josh Thompson and your work together on the Bellator broadcast. April 2nd, the exclusive changeover kicks off. We've obviously got that 205-pound tournament to get excited about, but on April 2nd, Pitbull, Emmanuel Sanchez, Part 2, the main event, the semifinal matchup in this what has been a spectacular 16-man featherweight World Grand Prix. John, when you looked at this tournament March Madness style bracket, when this thing kicked off pre-COVID, could you have asked for any better three names here than Pitbull and Sanchez and the other finalist, rising unbeaten AJ McKee?
No, man. If you're looking at, it's so weird because when you take a look at a tournament style like this, and you look at what promoters, they got to make money, and they want to try to put together the fights that they think the fans are going to be interested in, and what they want to see. And what Bellator did with this is they gave so much freedom to the fighters, because if you recall, after that first set of matchups going into the quarterfinals, they let the fighters pick either their opponent or pick the location and date of where they were going to compete. That almost came true, except for March 13th with COVID last year. But I mean, they really gave a ton of freedom to the fighters. And if you're, as a promoter, you couldn't ask for it to work out any better for you, because you've got, like you said, that rising star in AJ McKee, and you have the champion is still there. And then Emmanuel Sanchez is the other guy you're looking at going, look, this is a guy that he's got it all. And he is so good everywhere. He's already fought Pitbull. It was a close fight. He lost it, by decision, 3 rounds to 2. But looking at the rematch, and there's so many ways that fight can go, and it's such an interesting matchup. And they're both a little bit different as fighters right now than they were when they first met. So that's going to be the real key. Who's the guy that has grown and just developed that little bit more? They're going to be the winner.
All right, April 2nd, when this rematch takes place, a Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on Showtime inside the Mohegan Sun Arena, we're going to see the great two-division champ Patricio Pitbull, who told us upon this Showtime announcement that he might not be done, John. He might be thinking about going down to bantamweight to get a third world title. That's a topic for another day. But where does this guy, in your mind, realistically fit in pound for pound, regardless of organization, in the entire world from this run we've seen in the past 3, 4, 5 years?
I'm telling you, he came out onto, I want to say it was Twitter, just slamming Tapology as a website based upon their rank. They had him ranked like 21st in the world in the featherweights. And you look and you go, man, you guys are just not getting it. Now then I hear that it's fans that actually do that, for them. So it's really not people that have a real idea of, outside of one organization, who are the great fighters in the world. But if you're taking a look at a guy, he Marvelous Marvin Hagler just died, and it's so unfortunate. But there was a guy, the only person that he fought that he lost to or had a draw with that he did not get it back was Sugar Ray Leonard in his last fight. And you take a look at Pitbull, every time Pitbull has had a defeat, he has come back to get that win. And he has done it so many times. The only guy that he has never got to rematch was one of his first losses ever, Joe Warren, long ago. But this guy is just special because, man, he is powerful. He is strong. He's got a chin. He's got a great wrestling and jiu-jitsu game that he never really shows that much, except for he does go out for a guillotine choke if you try to take him down. But his stand-up, man, he is so confident. And the thing that about him that is so different now, in my opinion, he was always that guy when I was refereeing and I would referee him, he had this chip on his shoulder. He was angry. He was angry walking into the cage. He was angry when he was fighting. And you go, dude, relax, man. Don't waste energy like this. Now he doesn't. He is calm. He's got, He sits there on the outside. He'll tell you what he thinks, but on the inside, as soon as he steps in that cage and that gate closes, he is as cool as the other side of the sheet, man. He is ready to go. And now he knows, I'm going to just make people fight my fight. And that's the thing that Manuel Sanchez has got to figure out. Right now, Pitbull makes everybody who faces him fight his fight. You've got to change that up if you want to win.
Great points there. And obviously his one-punch knockout of Michael Chandler after moving up to lightweight looks even better today. And it looked pretty damn great about a year and a half ago when it happened. So let's stay on that first matchup that you referenced there. Pitbull, Sanchez fought for the first time in Israel. And as you mentioned, you could argue the fight was up for grabs going into the 5th round. I mean, forget arguing. You could probably look at the scorecards.
I thought it was.
And definitively say that. What do you think that Emmanuel Sanchez did different to, let's say, have more success against this version of Pitbull than anyone else has had?
Well, I think there's certain things that Emmanuel Sanchez possesses that makes him unique. And one of those is, first off, he has got a gas tank. He's that guy when, I'm always talking about, you got all these Ferraris, but they got these, these little tiny half-gallon gas tanks and they die out fast. This is a guy, he's got a 50-gallon gas tank. He can go 5 rounds, full bore, just about the entire time. He pushes the pace. He is a guy that's in your face, breaking you down both physically and mentally by the pressure he brings. But the real difference in this fight when I look at it is they're both good everywhere. But there's no doubt Pitbull has the big power. But there's also no doubt that if Sanchez can push him as far as the pace, he can break him down with that type of endurance and that ability to make him work out of his comfort zone. It's the volume. If Sanchez, in my opinion, is able to deliver on volume, don't even worry about ever hitting him hard. Don't worry about knocking him out. Don't worry about hurting him. I want you to frustrate him and touch him as many times as possible. If he does that, he's going to make Pitbull start to come and start to address this and come after him and push more. And that's exactly the fight that Sanchez needs. He comes, you look and you talk about heritage and backgrounds. Mexican fighters are known for their toughness and they will not quit. They will not back down. And man, if there's ever a guy that he holds that shield up high, that is Emmanuel Sanchez. El Matador is as tough a matchup for Patricio Pitbull, who is one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world that you can find.
The man awaiting the winner of this, of course, is AJ McKee, as we mentioned. And you talk about Bellator, let's say maybe changing the model of recent years. Maybe Bellator had great rating success 4 or 5 years ago with the Dada 5000s of the world, or the
I'm trying to hide behind the mic on that.
Shout out to the late Campbell Slice, who added a lot to the sport, of course, not trying to downgrade that. But AJ McKee's the perfect example of a homegrown product almost come full bloom, and he's already got Bellator records for consecutive wins and so many other categories. Scary enough, though, John, I don't think we know how good he is. I don't think he knows how good he is, because when you can go out there and submit somebody like a Darian Caldwell with a submission that was unique and people didn't see it coming in that moment, how let's say, scary do you think it is to fight a guy where you don't know what he's capable of?
It is exactly what you're saying. Is he's coming into that own, but I think now AJ knows how good he is. He knows. And it's a matter of, I've known him since he was a little kid. I knew him when he was wrestling in tournaments, and he was always this super athletic. You looked at him, but never really, he would train, but he would play, and his dad let him do that. And there was certain points, and when I came into Bellator as the color commentator, look, this is a kid that I've known for his whole life almost, and so I want him to do well. And I'm asking him times, hey, are you training? Are you really training? Don't give me your little line. I don't want to hear it. I want to know, who is it? What are you doing? All these things. And he's always like, oh yeah, come on, John, it, I am. And then I watched him in a couple of fights and I go, not really. And then he had the fight with Brian Moore. He had it in Ireland. He was the main event, and he struggled because he didn't train. And it taught him a massive lesson. You could see the difference from that fight on. He started taking his training seriously. He realized, I'm good, but if I'm tired, someone who's not as good as me can beat me. And so he has really changed. And in the last year and a half, he has made just exponential strides in what he is doing and capable of. And you talk about, let's just take a look at the run that he has had in this tournament. He knocked out Georgie Karhanyan, who is a tough sucker, in 8 seconds, right? He gets Derek Campos. He blows out his knee in the fight, tries to kind of finish it and gets a little bit gassed, calms himself down, and comes up with a beautiful submission victory in the 3rd round. And then he comes into ex-champion of the bantamweights, Darian Caldwell, who's moved up in weight. Darian is, the first guy that I looked at as this is a guy that can out-wrestle AJ. This is a guy that AJ is going to have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? Because he is finally facing the guy who is, his wrestling is not going to overcome this guy. And, when he came into that fight, he was super confident. I was talking to him about things. He goes, John, first round, it's going to be over. I guarantee you. First round. I said, hey, sometimes things don't come real fast. Sometimes, you know what? You need time. It's okay. Use the time. John, what did I just tell you? First round. And, when he locked up the body triangle, especially when he had the 100% with the head on the one side, it was funny because, we had a 3-man booth and Josh Thompson is talking and you're not supposed to step on the guy. And I'm trying to hit Josh, but he's too many feet away, right? Because I'm saying, look what he's got. And he ends up coming up with, a neck crank that it's never been pulled off. I have seen it in grappling tournaments. I've never seen it pulled off in MMA. And he got the tap on a guy that's a tough dude, man, an ex-champion and a guy that's still an amazing athlete. AJ McKee, in fact, your partner called it the McKee team.
There it is.
I know, it's a great name. I really like the name, but it has nothing to do with a guillotine, but it's cool.
Yeah, take that, Luke Thomas.
Take that, Luke Thomas. But it's definitely the McKee crank or something like that. It was a great submission that really surprised a lot of people, but it just shows how dangerous AJ McKee really is.
McKee versus either of Pitbull or Sanchez, who come out of the April 2nd semifinal, is going to be must-see TV. But obviously, you talk about a first impression on Showtime here for the Bellator MMA launch. It's not just April 2nd. It's the consecutive 2 weeks after, April 9th and 16th, when we get the first round matchups in this 8-man light heavyweight World Grand Prix. And John, let's just get right into Rumble versus Romero, your co-main event April 16th, because I don't care whether you love some Ryan Bader or some Vadim Nemkov. This is the sexiest matchup maybe that could be made. How the heck can we try to decide what this fight's going to look like when Yoel Romero is 43, a freak of nature, moving up in weight, and Rumble Johnson has done a self-imposed retirement where I'll pick his one-punch power to knock out anybody, yet is he going to come back a better wrestler? Is he going to come back, feeling the layoff? There are so many unanswered questions here. You're going to be sitting close enough to be able to see probably the best view of anyone but the referee. What can you say about your expectations for this one?
Oh, man, Scott Coker called me when they signed both these guys, and then he said, we made a decision that we're going to go with a light heavyweight tournament instead of the bantamweight tournament because we've got to do it with these guys. I said, I absolutely agree. And he said, well, let's talk about matchups. And then I said, look, the one matchup you've got to do first round, you've got to do Yoel against Anthony, because that's a fight that anybody, I don't care organization wise or anything, everybody wants to see that fight. That makes sense. I said, Anthony's coming off of a layoff long. I said, people talk about Yoel, and his age. And I always say, yeah, he may be 43, almost 44 on the paper, but that body, he's no older than 32, man. He is made of steel. He is just an incredible athlete. And so this is a fight that you don't even have to market. You don't have to promote. This is one that everyone wants to see. So you got to do that one first. He goes, yeah, no, he says, I was trying to figure out a way I could kind of get it to go into the second round of it. I go, don't do it, because, when you do those things, it's not going to work. He goes, I've already made up my mind. They're going to go in the first round. And I said, thank God, because it is a special fight. It's one of those, like, Anthony Johnson can go in there and knock Yoel Romero out. There's no doubt he can do that to anyone, just like you said. But no one's really done that. Okay, it's been a long time since you all had the problem. He got hurt by Costa in that fight, but came back, and you take a look at some of the shots he took, just amazing. But here's a guy, man, when he decides to turn off, he almost looks at times. When I was refereeing him, there were times I thought, are you going to fall asleep? Because he just looked like, I'm here. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that explosion happens and you go, why did you wait so long, man? He's got that ability. He's a wrestler with, a silver medal in the Olympics, but doesn't wrestle. He likes to stand and throw his hands. So I look at this, someone's going to go to sleep. I don't know who it's going to be. Could it be Yoel going down? Maybe. We haven't seen anyone punch him out with a, one punch knockout like we see Anthony Johnson do. Would that be something special? Yeah, it would, because Anthony coming off of this long layoff, but I could also see it turn the other way. I could see where Yoel lands the big shot and hurts Anthony. And if he goes into his wrestling, no matter what, Anthony's a good, solid wrestler. He's not the caliber of wrestler that Yoel is. He's going to have a hard time. And we've seen what happens when he did that type of thing with Daniel Cormier, the second fight. First fight, he tried to stay away from the wrestling. Second fight, he almost brought it towards Daniel. And you thought, why? He had to learn a lesson from that. He's going to try to stay away from the wrestling. If Yoel tries that, break that down, get him away, and use that power. But this is such a good matchup. I cannot wait.
I mean, the winner of this matchup could end up running the table, right? And then the odds makers sort of had that representative when they put Vadim Nemkov, the champion, unbeaten in the Bellator bracket, beaten countless ex-champion after ex-champion to really make his name in short time. But right after him and sort of the odds of who could win this, Romero and Rumble are right there because you just don't know. Can Rumble start knocking people out left and right? Or can Romero commit to what you mentioned? So Romero's such a unique cat because you can argue you've never actually seen him lose in his biggest UFC fights because that style has moments of inactivity mixed with brilliance where there's a lot of close decisions. But to your point about the lack of commitment to maybe his original bread and butter, the wrestling, he told us on the day this tournament was announced that he plans to wrestle this tournament. Is there any possibility we could get a Khabib Nurmagomedov-like dominant wrestling run out of Romero, as wildly unrealistic as that seems, given the fact that he's going in there against larger opponents here? I personally believe that he's going to give a better performance in this tournament at 205 than he was able to give in his prior performances at 185. I have said forever, Yoel was losing too much weight. It was affecting his performance. It affected his cardio. He's a guy you could look at him, he's in shape, and all of a sudden he's gassing and you go, it's the weight cut. And especially as you get up in years, that weight cut becomes harder and harder, and it takes more of a toll on your body. I think the greatest thing that could have ever happened for Yoel was when Scott Coker said, I'm going to sign you, but you're going to fight light heavyweight. Perfect thing for that athlete. I think it's going to be a godsend for Yoel Romero, and I think we're going to see a guy who's fresh, goes in there, feels good, and that's what makes this such an interesting matchup overall. So that right side of the bracket, which we'll see on April 16th, Vadim Nemkov is going to kick off his title defense reign in there. He's going to, if he advances, he'll obviously face the winner of Rumble Romero, but there's seemingly a lot of underdogs or guys laying under the radar on the left side of the bracket, from former champion Ryan Bader to Corey Anderson, who's a newcomer who looked very strong in his Bellator debut. And when we talk about newcomers, we're going to have to look up the pronunciation, but Zavletzan Yagshimuradov. Close.
Yagshimuradov, you got it. That's it.
Close.
I've been practicing.
Oh, right. Well, you watch the tape of him in Russia. Are we looking at a potential dark horse in this tournament? Because Big John, these tournaments, it's, Daniel Cormier wasn't supposed to win the Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. He wasn't even in the original draw. We don't know who's going to get hot at the right time. You're
absolutely right. And I can tell you, I was with Yagshimuradov when he was with ACB at the beginning, and I saw him when he lost. And you could see the potential, but he was just not fighting smart. He just did not make smart moves in the fight. But now go and watch his recent fights. Oh, things have changed, and he is a dangerous guy. His wrestling is outstanding. And that matchup with Corey Anderson is so unique. Corey's a lot taller fighter than Yagshimuradov, but this is going to be, I think it's going to end up, their wrestling is going to cancel each other out. They're going to end up on their feet for a lot of this. And it's going to be who's got the cleaner, more crisp technical striking. I think Corey's got the better striking overall, but I think Yagshimirov takes damage better than Corey does. So it's going to be one of those where this is a unique matchup. The same with, Machida against Bader. I did their first fight, and years ago, and there's such a classic picture of Machida after he knocked Bader out. And trust me, he knocked him cold. He's standing there bowing over, not basically over me and Bader's a little bit away, but it looks like he's doing it over. And it was such a telling fight because Machida was so elusive at that time. Bader did not know how to close the distance and get to him. And that is the reason he got knocked out. He started making these mad rushes, and Lyoto just waited, countered, boom, hits him with a good shot, and that's it. I think you're going to see a different guy in Ryan Bader. He's a different fighter now by far. So it's going to be a different matchup also in the fact that, I think Lyoto he's older. He's a little bit slower. He's not quite as fast as he used to be. So he's had to change some of the things that he does. But you look at just every matchup in the beginning. I Bellator did the champion Nemkov no favors in giving. Yeah, well, I give him, and I understand why. It makes sense. It's one of those. I always look at brackets when they put brackets together. I don't care who does it, and I go, why would you put that? There was not one that I looked at that I go, I understand why you put that. I understand. Okay, look, I talked about Yoel and Johnson. Obviously, that's the fight to make. I look at Bill Davis deserves that shot at Nemkov. He had a great third round against Nemkov when they first fought, and didn't do enough to be able to get the win, but learned a lot about maybe I need to change this up a little bit with this guy. Nemkov has grown since that fight. He's a better fighter now. So there's so many good things in the matchups. And I look at, Yagshimirov against Corey Anderson. No one knows who Yagshimirov is. He's good. And a lot of people don't really, they know Corey, they know him from the UFC, and he's okay. No, he's really good. That's a great person to put him against. And you had to have that rematch with Bader and Machida because the way it ended in the first one and, how classic that moment was. You got to give Bader that chance again, and you got to give Machida the opportunity to show I can do it again.
Great stuff. Couple quick bullets on the way out here, Big John. A man with your experience and knowledge, I could talk your ear off all day, but let's stay with that experience and knowledge. I mean, considering you started your referee career with UFC 2 at the infancy of the sport, you're one of the most influential in terms of creating the rule set, and now you're sort of like the resident historian of the history of the sport, whether you're accepting that title or not. If somebody's doing a documentary, they're going to rightfully call you up. You refed every organization. You're a color commentator. You're a broadcaster, all that stuff. Do you ever sit out in the back fire pit, cigar, and go, holy crap, I'm really good at my specific skills. I'm also really lucky. I've been here from start to finish in this sports career, life cycle.
I don't know if I'm really good at my specific skills, but I am really lucky. No doubt about that. It's I look and there's one thing that I've really had a problem with the sport is there's a lot of people that want to rewrite history because they want to become part of it, or they want to get credit where they don't deserve credit or things like that. So I'm always the fly in the ointment that goes, no, that's not what happened because I was there for most of it. And I have an idea of really how things happen. And I think that's important because there's a lot of people that kind of get pushed to the side based upon, well, you're out of the sport and this person's kind of, big in the sport right now. So what they're going to say is going to carry a lot more weight than, what you're going to say. And there has to be a history written of the sport that's accurate. It has to be one that gives credit to the people that truly deserve credit, and that's a lot of people, but some people try to, there's people and this Dana White is one, this is not against him at all. There are people out there that believe Dana White created the sport of MMA, and that's because media has kind of, put that out there at times and things. And you look and you go, stop. Dana has done an incredible job with what he's done, but he's far from being the guy that started this. It was there for a long time before him, and he's done things to help bring it to a bigger level. No doubt about it. But let's not forget the people that gave their blood, sweat, and tears to actually make this sport happen when it had a whole lot of bad things going against it.
Yeah. So let's keep Joe Son's name alive. No, wrong reference.
That would be a wrong reference.
Speaking of Dana, real quick, it won't show up on our IMDb pages, John, but you and I were arguably the stars of Dana's 4-minute media hack job video in December. I heard your reaction on your podcast weighing in, and it was hilarious. To be honest, it was also seemingly true across the board. Did you ever get a comeback, a text message from Uncle Dana in response to that?
No, I it's been a long time since I talked to Dana. I've been away from the UFC for over now 3 years. So I haven't talked to him since that time, and he knows my number. I have his. It may be his changed. Maybe I think mine's changed too. So maybe he doesn't have my number, but it's a matter of, look, I've never said anything with trying to put somebody in a place because it's not true. I'll say if I'm wrong, I'll say I was wrong. But when the COVID thing happened and everything, there was a lot of things going on, and I did talk about the UFC going to Tachi Palace.
Exactly.
That's what it was about. It had nothing to do with, I didn't want the sport to go on, and I didn't want them to have, shows. What I didn't want them to do is I did not want them to take a major step backwards and do something that they, for all of these years, and even though some of it isn't quite true either, that whole "we ran towards regulation" statement looks good. All right. Now, the UFC, even before Dana, was running towards regulation for quite a while. But Dana and Lorenzo Fertitta being the big, mastermind behind it, their whole thing was, hey, we're going to say we're running towards regulation. And they were. And they would not go anywhere where the sport wasn't regulated for a long time based upon, hey, we need to make sure that everyone realized how legal this is. Well, if they had gone to Tachi Palace, it would have been a huge step backwards. It would not have been a legal show as far as any of the athletic commissions would have looked at. There would have been suspensions of officials. It was a horrible thing overall. So as soon as they got past that and they could do it legally, I was 100% for them. I want them to succeed. They have to succeed for our sport to succeed. It's exactly it. It's like, I love the sport of MMA. So in turn, I love the UFC, and I have a special feeling for as long as I was there and what I did. I would never want to do anything that was harmful to them. But
fair enough.
The whole thing is
a little overblown. All right, Joe, I've kept you a long time. Let me get this is the kind of question someone must ask you when they see you in public and they crack a beer against you and they say, I always wanted to ask you this. This is what I always wanted to ask you. Not your favorite fight, not the best fight you ever ref. Not that. I want to know what fight that you ref that you were the most freaking amped up for as a fan, where you're almost having to check yourself because you're like, I'm the third man in history in this one. As a fan, I think about like Lesnar Carr when I was so jacked, Sonnen Silva too, maybe Conor Habib, right? There's certain moments where you're like, I just got to know what happens next. What was that for you as a referee?
Well, I'll give you a little backstory and just, Brian, I had done so many fights. People talk like, do you get nervous? No, I don't get nervous. I know what I'm doing and I know what's going to, take place. And I never got that, that nervous energy since long ago. And then I was tasked with doing the Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo because it had been canceled and everything. And it's finally going to happen. And so I walked into the cage and Conor's the first one walking out. And as he's walking out, I get that electrical buzz going up my spine. And I was like, holy shit, look at it. That's what I was thinking to myself. Holy shit, look at that, man. Obviously this means something. And then it lasted 13 seconds long. So but that was the one that, I can look back on and go, I got that buzz, when I was standing in the cage. And so that would have to be one of those fights that, I got excited for.
And by the way, whether we're talking about Aldo McGregor or Pitbull Sanchez 2 coming up April 2nd, it's that buzz, Big John. That's the secret sauce, the catnip, the drug that keeps us.
That's what back. Keeps you coming, baby.
I love it. I love it. Great stuff. The Bellator MMA on Showtime transition. It begins Friday night, April 2nd. You can see that, man. Big John McCarthy, only on Showtime. We got a featherweight tournament. We got light heavyweights. We got a lot of great stuff to come. Big John and the Weigh In podcast. Love what you guys are doing. Continued success in this portion of your career, as you're not going anywhere. You're not going away. You're only adding to the resume here.
I hope I'm not going away. I just want to tell you, both you and Luke, BC, you do a great job. I love your stuff. Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.